Welcome back to FRC Media. I'm Keith Tebow. Thank you for joining us today. We're spending a lot of time talking to those who are on the state election ballot coming up on November 3rd. The city of Fall River is being served by one state senator, and our state senator is actually running unopposed this year, rather. But we thought we'd still talk to Senator Mike Rodrigues to get an update on what's happening and how he's been serving our community. Senator Rodrigues, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Keith. Thanks for inviting me. It's always good to see you. And it's always good to be on to have a conversation with you for the benefit of your listening audience, my constituents.
You've been state senator now for how long? When were you first elected state senator?
10 years. I was elected in November of 2010 and sworn in January of 2011. So completing 10 years as a state senator.
So let me ask you, does it seem like it's been 10 years? I mean, obviously you served before in the state legislature on the House side. Does it seem like it's been 10 years you've been senator?
Not at all. It's gone by really, really quickly. And they say time flies when you're having fun. So I must be having a lot of fun because the time has definitely flown. Every once in a while, I run across some old campaign literature, including a flyer from my very first campaign in the special election in April of 1996, where there was a photograph of myself of a very young Mike Rodrigues with no gray hair and a dark beard running for state representative to replace then newly elected mayor of Fall River, Ed Lambert. And it's just funny, but it seems like only yesterday as we were preparing and drafting and figuring out, what our quote unquote drop lit pieces were going to look like.
Yeah, over the past 10 years, you served in a number of roles with the legislature and in the Senate specifically. Being a freshman senator, you're still learning the ropes, even though you were a state representative moving over to the other chamber. And now you're the chair of the Ways and Means Committee in the Senate. How has your role evolved in the Senate? And I guess, what have you learned over the past 10 years?
Oh my God. Well, I always say, I loved my 15 years in the House of Representatives, but I never go back. The Senate is a different body. There are only 40 senators as opposed to 160 representatives. Every Democratic state senator automatically is a chair of a committee. So you become instantly the expert in the body on a particular interest. My first year as senator, I was chairman of the Committee on Children, Families, and Persons with Disabilities, which was a tremendous learning opportunity. Then I quickly rose into leadership. I became chair for 2 sessions of the Committee on Revenue, which is a committee on taxation, but we call it revenue because revenue sounds better than taxation, right? So that I learned a lot about just how taxes are raised in a multitude of ways in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And we can spend a whole show on that, on how and why I think Massachusetts does it right when it comes to the way it taxes its citizens to provide for services. Then under Senate President Rosenberg, I became the Assistant Majority Whip. Then the Majority Whip, along with the chair of the Committee on Ethics, where unfortunately it was my responsibility to lead the ethics investigation into the gentleman who appointed me, Senate President Rosenberg, sexual harassment allegations not against him, but against his spouse. And it was a real hard, difficult, tough time for me, but we did it. We did it with glowing reviews from those legislative watchdogs, mostly the media, the Boston Globe, and the like that really had us under the spotlight. We got glowing reviews of how we handled that very difficult, tough situation. We elected a new Senate President, Karen Spilka, and Senate President Spilka honored me with the appointment as chair of the Senate Committee on Ways and Means. It was, like I told my wife, Patty, the day that I knew I was going to get the appointment, I came home and I said, honey, I have great news and I have bad news. She goes, well, what's the great news? The great news is Senate President Spilka asked me to serve as chair of the Committee on Ways and Means. She goes, well, what's the bad news? Is that Senate President Spilka asked me to be chair of the Committee on Ways and Means. Little did I know that we would enter a pandemic in my second year as the chair of that committee, which is why, as you can see from where I am now, I am in my State House office every day, even though the State House is closed to the public. It's essential personnel only in the State House, which basically means myself and limited number of my Ways and Means Committee staff, the governor and limited number of his staff, the Senate President, just the highest level of leadership. We're in the building every day, trying to balance now a budget that is $5 billion out of whack because of the pandemic, trying to navigate a myriad. I think we passed 21 or 23 COVID-related emergency pieces of legislation. The pandemic not only caused an uproar and turned our state government upside down, but it also turned all our local municipal governments upside down. The city of Fall River closed City Hall. How do you pay your tax bills? What if you have a permit to operate a business that's expiring and you need to renew your permit? How do you do that with City Hall closed? How does a city or a municipality budget when they don't know a primary source of revenue, i.e. local aid from the state? Mm-hmm. We navigated all that. At the same time, working with very important state partners in education, like Bristol Community College, like UMass Dartmouth, our State Department of Correction, all our state nursing homes. It's been a very busy and difficult 6 months, but I am very, very proud of how not only my team in Senate Ways and Means, but the entire legislature, all my colleagues, especially my colleagues from Fall River, we work very, very closely together. The cooperation, the collaboration, and the relationship that we in the Senate have with our House colleagues, that we in the legislature have with the governor and our chief executive office and his administration, we work well and we've worked well together. And people recognize that. I have constituents all the time to say, Massachusetts really has its act together. We see what's happening down in Washington. We see what's going on with Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell and President Trump and Secretary Mnuchin and all the machinations going on down there and how they can't get along and they can't get anything done and it's partisan infighting. We don't see that in Massachusetts because it's not happening in Massachusetts.
Yeah. As now a part of leadership within the Senate, has that translated to benefits back here in Fall River and in the rest of your district? Some people, you're running unopposed, but sometimes if you were, opposed in the election, you could use that as a benefit that I'm in a position to really deliver for our region. Do you find that is to be true?
Well, I take my responsibility of chair as Ways and Means very, very serious. But I also take my position of chair of Ways and Means as an opportunity to help my district in any and all ways possible. I would say that, history will judge us, but during my term as long as it shall last, as Senate Ways and Means chair, there will be more resources flowing back to the city of Fall River and the SouthCoast than ever before. For instance, just last year, we secured $1.7 million in public safety staffing grant support for our City of Fall River Police, our City of Fall River Fire. Over my tenure, we've gotten close to $8 million in public safety staffing support, the highest amount by far of any community in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Why? Because we all know that public safety, our police and our fire, our EMTs, our first responders one of the most important areas that we should be and we will continue to invest in. Monies for the Children Advocacy Center, monies for the Fall River Boys and Girls Club, monies for the Fall River Children's Museum, monies for Bristol County Fire Chiefs Emergency Radio, monies for Shannon grants, for Safe and Successful Youth grants, releasing all the money for SouthCoast Rail. SouthCoast Rail, there are the two mega contracts totaling almost $900 million have been awarded. They are being implemented right now, and that's the construction, the actual contract work for all the rails and the commuter rail stations in Fall River and New Bedford. Money for the Flint section of Fall River, money for Slade's Ferry area in Somerset, money to finally remove and demolish the Brightman Street Bridge before the next big storm knocks it down into the river, and we're really in trouble, and it costs a lot more money to get rid of it. So I do what I can always. My first priority is and always will be the district that I represent.
And that leads me to my next question. You talked about the priorities, but dealing with the constituents. We talked about this when we first interviewed you remotely at the beginning of COVID. The fact that your phone ringing off the hook, the state reps as well, getting a lot of questions from people about unemployment, the PPP and other financial assistance. How important has your work been on that end of things? And has it been impacted at all with the fact that you're now part of leadership? Some people may say, well, maybe you're not as invested in that constituent service work.
So I have two district offices, one in Fall River City Hall, Government Center, one in Somerset Town Hall, and I'm here every day in the State House. But my district offices are manned with people. Caitlin Rowley is my district director. She fields dozens of calls every week for help with unemployment assistance, for the pandemic unemployment assistance. I have, you call my office, you have a person answer the phone, whether it's in Fall River, Somerset, or Swansea, if they're not on the line with somebody else, but the offices are manned. Constituent service is our number one priority. I guess the people that ask are my constituents, are they happy with the service that I've been providing? And I think they have been, because I have an amazing team. It's led by Karen Almeida, who's been with me for 25 years. Karen is my chief of staff. She leads the staff, and I do have a good sized staff now that I have a lot more responsibility in the Senate. But, we do not go home at night, whether it's from the State House office, Fall River office, or the Somerset office, until every single email is responded to, every text is responded to, every phone call is returned, every letter is responded to, so that when any one of us, as we're out in the public, can hold our head high and know that a constituent's not going to come up to us and say, hey, I called you, I emailed you, I texted you, I wrote you, and you never responded. We do respond. And it's funny, sometimes I respond to someone saying, I don't know. Good question. You asked me a good question. I'm just letting you know that I don't have an answer for you at this time, but I don't want you to think that your email or your text went into cyberspace, that we are working on it and we will get an answer for you as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. That goes a long way. People, they hit send on an email or, and they think it just goes into cyberspace. You'll never hear an answer. And that will not happen in my office.
Let me just ask you as a final question, obviously COVID is still going to be dominating the work that you're going to be doing, even after the election and in 2021 probably. But, looking ahead, are there any other initiatives that you'd like to pursue as state senator for our region and maybe in Fall River in particular? COVID aside, I guess, would be my question.
COVID really put the dampers and the crimp to so many initiatives that not only I, but I, along with Senate President Spilka and the leadership team in the Senate, were really, anybody that follows state government knows that, we get a lot of stuff done in the Senate. We are always at the forefront and leading as far as new initiatives, whether it's on climate change, whether it's on education reform, or whether it's on criminal justice reform. You name it, we're out in front. Healthcare reform, we passed 3 healthcare bills this year that dealt with prescription drugs, that dealt with behavioral and mental health, that dealt with scope of practice and telemedicine. And unfortunately, COVID put a crimp in that because for the last 6 months, 2 things happened. One is we had to change our focus from being proactive on new initiatives to being reactive to the COVID pandemic. But we had to, and we did. The other thing is that it put a crimp in our budget. Now, think about this. On the 1st of March, the governor had already filed his proposed FY21 budget. We in Senate Ways and Means Land were working very closely with our colleagues in House Ways and Means Land, putting together a budget for FY21 that assumed a 2.8% revenue growth over FY20. And by the way, FY20 was very, very good year, as was FY19. So we've had a couple very good years to build a budget on that we could, for instance, fully invest in the Student Opportunities Act, the biggest reform to K through education since the original Chapter 70 education reform bill back in 1993. We were going to invest in more affordable housing initiatives, more healthcare initiatives, invest heavily in substance abuse, in mental health issues. Then that was on March 1st. Then by April 1st, pandemic struck. Governor Baker instituted his state of emergency. Mayor Walsh in Boston issued a stay-at-home notice and shutdown of all construction sites in the city of Boston, which, by the way, that one executive order immediately put 12,000 blue-collar unionized building trades men and women on the unemployment line. And we went from a 2.8% projected revenue increase to a 17% projected revenue deficit for FY21. So we are looking right now at a hole of about $5 billion in the budget that Governor Baker put together back in January that actually should have already been signed, sealed, and in law. And, we are at this time of year, we're supposed to be focused on elections and campaigns and trying to reconnect with our constituents back in the district. But, it is what it is. I'm here in my state house office. I'm lucky. I have a nice office, but it's where I am every day. So, I miss not getting around the district like I did when I was a rep or just another senator, but it is what it is. I have a responsibility and I take it seriously.
Yeah. State Senator Michael Rodrigues up for re-election in the First Bristol and Plymouth District of the Massachusetts Senate. Thank you for joining us. All the best of luck, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
You got it, Keith. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. And thank you for joining us today here on FRC Media. And please make a point to vote on November 3rd.